You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos Stilianessis.
Okay. Welcome back, everybody. Episode 27. I can't believe it's 27 episodes. We got a special guest with you for you today. Someone that I met 11 years ago in an acting class in New York City, and we reconnected because I saw that he was speaking out on things that were going on in the last 17, 18 months, and here he is right now. Faust Checho. Dude, that's great.
Yeah.
What's the ethnicity? Is that Italian?
I'm Italian and Sicilian. Of course, only the Sicilians will make that distinction, Yeah,
right.
But yeah, I'm Italian American. Both my parents were Italian, and my dad's Sicilian and Italian.
Cool, yeah. Man. I'm obviously, I'm Greek, and
yeah.
Say, una fazza, una razza.
I do now, Jerry.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yerasimos. Yeah. Let's keep down the DL. No, I'm kidding.
So my
It's all good. So yeah, man, welcome to Here for the Truth.
Thanks, man. It's an honor to be here. I love what you guys are doing.
Appreciate it, man.
Dude. So, what were you saying, Joel?
I just said I appreciate the compliments. They love what we're doing, bro. That's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. Listen, we're all in this together. We're doing our part. We're doing our part.
That's right.
Truth to power, to uncover the little things that people maybe aren't paying attention to, and I think we're risking things too, man. It's you risk things to go against the status quo and speak out and go against the norm. So talk a little bit about that. How has that been for you? And
more than ever. I got, it's funny because I still waste my time with Facebook. And, I made a remark on someone's post, and she works, I think she has a government job, her and her husband, and they're being mandated to take this experimental thing that they're putting out, and she feels very trapped, and she feels very, she's kind of in a panic. And I was like, look, there are resources, there are people who you can talk to, and I simply commented that you have a whole community that is standing with you right now, and you're not alone. And man, the first comment was like, "You're going to listen to a washed up actor?" And I'm like, "Whoa, what?" Well, it's like, what?
Ad hominem attacks. They can't actually argue what you're bringing. They just have to attack.
Right. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. Why you say it? Because it says formerly employed on my Facebook profile. That's their programming, Sherlock. I'm like, if you get a job as an actor for, USA or whatever, CBS, you work a couple days and then you're no longer employed by then. So it shows up as formerly, because they were like, oh, I was like, whatever, it's like people but immediately right for the jugular, like, no. And this is supposed to be like her friend that I'm trying to help. You would think that would mean something, but
that's the level of threat that this person is under. That's the level of fear, right? So it's so easy to all of a sudden go for the jugular and slander to any extent anyone that questions that paradigm, which is, that can't be threatened for that person, because that's extremely painful to consider that one might be wrong for these people, right?
That's exactly right. And it's there's so many things we can go into, but how's it been for me? It's been, look, I roll with the punches. I love boxing. I don't like getting hit, but I do know how to roll with punches, and I don't take it personally. I try not to take it personally. It's been tough, man, to see friends who have been my peers, actors and people in the industry quietly, unfriend and unfollow me. And again, I always thought that we can have differing opinions and remain friends, but you realize, like you just said, the level of fear is so great that it becomes, they can't, it's not comfortable for them, and they're not comfortable enough with themselves. They haven't spent enough time with themselves to be able to see that, separate from it, they just got to be like, no more. I mean, I have family that has done that to me. And that's, it's not easy when that happens. Because then they get themselves in shit. I'm like, you should have kept following my posts. You would have knew better than to do that shit.
Yeah, exactly, man. And what you said about the person who just automatically showed up on the Facebook post. Who was it? I don't know if it was Jason Christoph or someone who talks about like the Agent Smiths.
Yeah.
The Agent Smiths of the Matrix. It's like once something comes out, like there's a post or someone says something to challenge the construct of the Matrix. It's like these Agent Smiths come out to just be like, no, you're wrong.
Oh my God, dude. I'm just like, yo, what part of you feels the need to stick up for the $1 trillion big pharmaceutical industry that has a criminal record of destroying lives? What part of you thinks that they need you to do their work for them? I'm like, that part of your brain, you should take a good look at it. I bet you it's been a little washed.
It's a good question, man. It's a great question. And I mean, the best that I can share on that is that it's equivalent to the lies and the falsehood that they've allowed within themselves. And for the external lies to be exposed as lies, then that means that a part of them has to be put on the stake as well, and that's a big barrier for one to cross.
It is. It's a huge barrier, and it takes a brave soul to go that route, because you can't just go that route in one part of your life. You're gonna take responsibility for yourself in all ways, and that includes what you're seeing and hearing, or you're not. And I see that as a very common denominator for people who are very kind of vicious with their attacks on, and people who I didn't realize could be so vicious. It's, it is what it is. But again, I try not to take it personally, because I really, you don't know how much backspacing I do. backspace. I try not to be a reaction, that I've learned that, because my initial reaction is to retaliate. I want to take someone's, you could say it's the Sicilian in me, but I want to go for the jugular. That's what we did in my family.
You twice as hard back.
I mean, I grew up with a twin brother. We fought as altar boys on the church. You know what I'm saying? Like he would reach for the bell, and if it was my turn, he would give me a shot, and then we'd be punching each other on the church, and the priest would just look at us like, "Are you doing this right? Are you really doing this right now?" Yeah. But man, they should have never had us serve mass together, because we look like bookends up there, But
yeah, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Pennsylvania, about an hour and 20 minutes from here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay, cool,
yeah, northeastern Pennsylvania, right outside of Allentown.
Gotcha. Yeah, man, I hear you. It does take a certain kind of person to just like go against the grain. I have a friend of mine here who's like in a certain like subculture music scene. I won't like get too specific.
Yeah.
And he like had friends of 20, 25 years, worked regularly, and was the only one to speak out on this. And he's had friends of 20 years who used to book him for everything, won't book him, won't even return his calls, all because he spoke up about what's happening. And it's pretty wild.
Well, I mean, and it hurts, but at the same time, I hope some of them will come around, I mean, some of them will come back to their senses, because what it is stress and fear make you literally, and I don't mean this in the typical way, but we get selfish when we're under stress, literally. I mean, we're programmed to, right? All the blood in the frontal lobe retreats to the back. Your adrenaline is ready. Your body's ready to mobilize. That's when you're in a fear and stress response, you're ready to take action, right? You're ready, and you got a very narrow, it's hyper, but it's a narrow focus. And it says, look out for you and yours and fuck everyone else. That's what that response does. And you see that happening. I mean, come to New York City. New York City was like that a little bit before. And now, you throw this notion into the air of a airborne threat. And this place is crazy. You know what I mean? It was crazy before.
So
now.
Yeah, man. So that's what I'm curious, because I lived there for 8 years, and you're the first person we have on the show who has lived in New York City. So what was it like? How has it been like from, we're 18 months in now. Like, what's been some of the process that you experienced during this whole
Oh man.
charade?
I mean, I was in disbelief. I thought New Yorkers, I thought they were different. I thought this was a different breed. I thought this was a different city, but I just realized that it's not what I thought it was. And that most people, I don't know if it's, I mean, I'm pretty sure it is. It's the journey that I've been on over the last 10 years that has put me in an even greater position to question what's happening and see through what's happening. And I've been like, my friends from Pennsylvania are like, dude, you should do a dance every day on your Facebook profile just to celebrate, because everything you fucking said that was happening and is happening has come true. And you should just fucking celebrate. I'm like, yeah, but dude, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested, I'm not going to win anyone over like that. And I was hoping that I wasn't right. You know what I mean? That there wasn't this fuckery going on anyway, but
where are we going to have the Academy Awards for conspiracy theorists? Like who was the best conspiracy theorist, dude? Like, and the award goes to, cause it's just like, exactly, man. It's just like, we say these things like a year and a half ago, and then they come true. And how many people that were unfollowing you, that were ridiculing you, that were saying the meanest things to you, take responsibility and go, hey man, I was wrong, you were right. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's telling.
And I try to keep open communications with as many people as I can. And I try to keep the discussions civil, and I try to keep them ongoing, but it's such a huge onion, and there's so many layers to it. And so, you're trying to talk to people, and people who are like reading the New York Times and hearing the news and thinking that there is like, a kernel of truth to any of it are so far behind the ball. It's hard to catch them up. It's unbelievable to them. They think that you're crazy naturally. It's just too much for them to swallow.
Especially while they're still consuming it, right? And that's why step one to this process is to fucking stop consuming it. Give you a chance. Give your psyche a chance to detox from the fucking constant bombardment of programming that's taken place. But until you can even recognize that for yourself, there is no hope. There honestly isn't, right? You got to turn it off first.
It's true, man. I mean, you have to. You can't reprogram with the same. No new information is getting in, and this is what I've been experiencing. I was having ongoing. They've ended now, but they were ongoing conversations with a few actors who I have a lot of affection for, and who I've known for about 12, 15 years now, and I appreciate that they engage in the dialogue with me. But what I discovered in all of the dialogue was that, the level of betrayal that has happened in our society on so many levels it's shocking. You know what I'm saying? It's too much for most people to believe. It's so talk about systemic, it's so ingrained in our society, and you're raised to think about things one way. To discover that they're actually a different way, it's a hard pill to swallow. It's a big red pill.
Yeah. And especially if people haven't done the inner work, haven't healed their trauma, haven't healed their nervous system, to consider that society really is inverted, to think at every level and every arena and institution is inverted and built on a foundation of lies.
That's it.
I mean, that is a tough pill to swallow. You have to be a certain type of person, and
absolutely.
And this is another question. I'm so curious, like, what is it? What is it about certain people that are just like, oh, hey, like, I want to know what's going on. Like, I can hold space for it, as opposed to like, nah.
At the same time, on the flip side of that, I think the difference is how much of ourselves we've invested in the mirror of society, right? Yeah. And it's that degree which holds us back from actually seeing through the illusion, perhaps, as opposed to what's unique about the truth seeker, or the person that does see it, it's simply, for me, it's simply the fact of the diet, right? What we're consuming on all levels. And throughout a lifetime, we've decided to recognize that, you know what I mean? Some things aren't conducive to us, and we've eliminated them, and we've altered the way that we interact with society as a result. But for someone that's just constantly consuming the garbage because they've projected so much of themselves into the world, you know? And so with that level of investment, if the world is a lie, then I'm a lie. And how am I ever gonna face that, accept that? Like, that's deep shadow work, man. It
is very deep. And shadow work, I think, is the key word, you know. And look, there are some people who I would, you know, I've been asking myself the same question at like, what makes some people, and I think it's a combination of like everything else, of nature versus nurture, and that some people have a natural proclivity, you know, to question, and other people, you know, and then you combine that with, you know, people who have really done the work with themselves, and they can, you know, then it's really hard, because then you start to see through it, and you know, you start shouting it from the mountaintops, because you know, that's your first inclination, is to let everyone know, and that never works out, because everyone's like, you lose your mind, you need to sit down, okay?
Yeah, we've all been there, man.
Yeah,
it's like, but when you first have that, it's like, everyone needs to hear this, everyone needs to know this. Why would I hold back any part of what I know?
No, you're trying to save people, you know,
right? But until you do that, and you realize, you know what I mean, the level of brick wall and mortar that's on the other side, then there's a next step to this process that takes place.
Exactly. And then you realize that, you know, very, very few people are going to hear something and be convinced by, you know, unless they're really ready and it really resonates with them, you know, which is a rare thing.
You can't force a person to be red pilled, as they say. They have to do it on their own.
That's
and
right.
do the work necessary. And I hear you, man. I think about like stages in my life, like when I first really started going down certain rabbit holes. Like, I mean, 9/11 is one whole other story, but even just like the whole HIV/AIDS thing. One of my first acting teachers, actually, one of my first mentors, you know, in 2004, 2005, was an activist, and he kind of was connected to the whole dissident community there with Professor Peter Duisberg, David Raznick, Carrie Mullis. So that's when I first got introduced to Dr. Carrie Mullis, and I read his autobiography in 2005, which was like a mind fuck for me. You know, it's called Dancing Naked in the Minefield. And so like, even then I remember trying to tell everyone, like, you don't understand like these things, and Dr. Fauci, and like, this was 15 years ago, dude. Like, where I'm like, Fauci's a corrupt motherfucker.
Always has been. That's why he's there. That's
you
why
know?
he's, I mean, people don't understand. That's, I mean, you don't stick around through 5 presidents, because, you know, that is a very specific type of person. And it's one that, you know, that he is if the tide is corruption, he is the moon to that. That's how you stick around that long, you know, especially when you come into, you know, your position in the midst of an epidemic. Go figure.
You don't last that long by being an individual critical thinker that challenges the conventional norms. You last that long when you go along with whatever certain people in power and the structures that are at play tell you what to do, and you go, yes, that's what we'll do.
And you know how to push that. You know how to get that agenda forward. You know how to take care of people who aren't cooperating, and take care of the ones who are. You know, that's what Fauci has always been great at. You know, but Fauci, I mean, I don't know how people don't see right through him. You know, you would think that that people would, that's it. I mean, people were wearing Fauci shirts in the city, like Team Fauci. I'm like, what?
I can't even comprehend the psyche of such a person. Like, I can't even begin to understand. It's just, it's crazy.
So like, being here, you know, like, dude, every night, as soon as curfew hit, I'd walk. I'm going for a walk, you know, and then I would go for a walk when everyone was asleep, just to walk the streets to see.
It's got to be a trip, dude, being in New York. I haven't been back to New York in a few years. So I can only imagine New York City during this time, dude, like ghost town.
It was crazy. It was crazy. It was so quiet. It was ludicrous. It was like, I was like, damn, you know, like, do people think that like the boogeyman is out here? I mean, it was just so quiet. It was nice, but it was crazy that people, would listen to this.
Yeah. Dude, even my wife and I, we lived in Santa Monica, and we're over like five blocks from the Pacific, and all of Santa Monica, downtown Santa Monica, was empty, and we're just going for these walks, man. When there were lockdowns and curfews, it was actually pretty awesome, to be honest. It was like really, really nice.
I bet, man.
There, and just to experience that quiet that you just wouldn't experience otherwise, especially in New York City. Oh my God, like the city that never sleeps. That's literally going on. I lived there for 8 years. Like I couldn't imagine what it was like if everyone's like, in their apartments, like, yes, government, I will do what you say, and I won't go outside. And if I breathe fresh air, something's gonna happen.
I'm like, this is not New York. Is this New York City? Tough city, I thought. Yeah, right? Where are the rest of the tough guys? It was trippy, man. It was surreal.
It is surreal. That's the word that comes to mind for me too. Like it's surreal just to be here having this conversation now in 2021, and being like, wow, it worked. You mean they got them. The plan happened, and like we've been reading about Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, like all this, talking about these conspiracies, but like for me personally, I never thought it would actualize the way that it has, like in such a physical capacity, but then to sit here and watch it have happened the way it happened.
You're in the thick of it, aren't you? Or where are you right now?
Yeah, I'm in Sydney, Australia, man. We're certainly we're certainly in the thick of it. We're 10, 11 weeks into a lockdown now. They've just announced that we're going to come out of this lockdown, on the 1st of October, but only the vaccinated are going to come out of the lockdown. And then 3 weeks later, the unvaccinated are allowed to exit the lockdown. And to me, it just feels like that's just a training module for businesses to start segregating and discriminating for the next time they squeeze the clamps. Then they've already got that bit of exercise into how to implement it. Bro, like this was the lucky country, man.
I know, dude. I have a friend who moved there a few years ago, man, and I talk to her often. She's like, help. I'm like, you should have stayed in Connecticut. I know Connecticut's kind of boring, but Australia isn't what you thought.
I mean, 15,000 people a day from the border, from people applying to leave the country, like people that are attempting to flee at this point in time.
So you can't.
Are they getting out?
I think it depends how much money you have right now. It's very difficult either way.
Wow.
But you're saying in order to leave, you have to submit to.
You got to apply to leave. You have to apply to leave. Yes. And
then you have to submit to the injection.
Well, I think you can get away.
Care if you're leaving.
Depending where you're going, I think you can get away with just a PCR. Still, but I mean, it's getting tighter and tighter every single day. But this was the convict island, right?
Dude, I just heard I had him on my podcast. He's a channel. But the information that comes out of this guy, the stories that come out of this guy, he's just a profound dude. But somebody asked him, I shouldn't say him, they didn't ask him, they asked his higher self, which is a being from another dimension, another race, what was happening with Australia and what can be expected. And his answer was pretty profound. He said, it's the same trauma playing out in Australia that's been playing out since the time that it was a prison colony. And he said, and it's going to continue to play out, until the trauma is recognized in the collective and healed. He said, it's not, you have the jailers, the people who are, anyone, because why do we put people in jail? Because it's not safe. It's not safe for them to be out of jail. No. He said, and this is what's happening. It's the same thing playing out. And he said, and you have people in Australia who are happy to be safely in their little prisons, he said, but this is, and I was like, damn, man, that's a profound, deep answer. I was like, I hadn't even thought about the trauma, the backlash and of that kind of psyche that was on the island for so long there. But man, it's like, it resonates, like, damn, like, it does seem like that's what's happening.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, man. That is profound. There's actually an article that came out the other day where there's some guy who actually decided to extend his actual prison sentence in an actual prison because he had more freedoms inside than outside. He could hang out. He could hang out in groups. He could exercise whenever he wanted to exercise.
Wow.
He could still have communication and and touch and all the rest of it. So yeah, dude, it's I know. But you're right, man. Safety
I just can't believe that you just said that.
That is so fucking FUBAR.
Oh, hello. I mean, I don't have a good Australian accent, but hello, you're up for parole? No. I'm staying in here.
I'm staying in, mate. Yeah.
I'm staying in.
My God, man. I mean, send me that article. I'm going to post that on my Facebook page. That is crazy. But it speaks to what's happening there. And you know, this is, I mean, I don't know if you read about that day in Italy. It was a few months ago. I'm trying to think if it was last year or a few months ago. I know the weather was colder. I just don't know what side of Christmas it was on. But it was like, you know, the Italians found a way to communicate with each other, you know, in code on some of the social media because they were shutting it down, but using the internet, and they coordinated a day when all the restaurants were going to open.
Oh yeah.
You know, and they did, but you know, from Rome all the way up and down. And, you know, of course, at first the police were like, what are you doing? You know, but then when everyone was open, eventually the police sat down and were like, they just would have a drink because a lot of places weren't ready to serve food right off the bat. But the whole country opened because they wanted to remind the government that if and when they decide to stop playing along, they're the ones who are in charge, because you can't stop everyone, you know. And if Australia did that in one day, if they just coordinated one day where they all just said, no, we're going to do what the fuck we want. You would show the government and remind the government how powerless they are without the people, because that's the truth of it.
Joel, what were you gonna say?
So I agree. This is the opportunity that the people need to take up now to flex their power and to bring balance to what that is. I mean, particularly now in Australia when they do reopen, I think I think boycotting is a great method, particularly for any businesses, restaurants, pubs, cafes that want to accept passports only. I think this is where the people need to decide. You know what I mean? Where they're going to invest.
It's discrimination. Why not put your money into a business that's not discriminating? Yeah,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? There are people who cannot and should not get this.
Yeah.
You know, it's that simple. It's not. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. There are people who could and should not get this. People who have already been, you know, diagnosed and recovered from COVID. We know that now, right? We have solid science that speaks to that. Immunity is almost 13 times stronger. Now, if those people get this, their natural immunity is going to be kaputs. It's going to be screwed up. So if it's health we're after, wouldn't that be, you know, well, first of all, the big problem with that is that's about 40% of the population. So
it's never about health.
Yeah. And I mean, I am hopeful, just looking at the simple commentary on social media in Australia and all the different various polls that go up and whatnot. I am hopeful that most people are against this and do realize what's going on. But you know, man, the media creates illusions to leverage the majority. It's obviously people are inclined to go where the majority goes because safety is that primal thing that we're after.
It's the path of least resistance, you know. So it becomes a no-brainer for people who don't, you know. Look, I have a friend. I love this guy. He's very talented Broadway African-American actor, been on Netflix, been working consistently, you know, and does a great job. I've seen him, you know, on and off the stage. I've seen him on his shows. I was planning on and still planning on working with him. But I saw this coming and, you know, I was like, dude, they're going to say that you have to be jabbed in order to work. You know that, right? And he was like, you know, he doesn't try. He has a healthy distrust, like a lot of African Americans, of the government and big pharma when they go into business together. As they should. Exactly. You know, he's like, you know, we got a part on Broadway, $8,000 a week, took it away from him, found out he wasn't back. Got a part on a Netflix show, took it away from him, found out he wasn't back. I'm like, I tried to tell you, bro, you know, like, I mean, I don't know what he could have done, but I was like, dude, you know, I was like, they're coming. This is coming. you know.
Yeah.
And it's
SAG-AFTRA just mentioned, I think it was just today, that like and the advertising business, they're going to require they're allowing mandated jabs for commercial shoots and auditions. That's what I just saw somebody posted.
I mean, they've been doing it for a while. They've been saying that if you don't have the card, you can't work on set. I've been seeing that a lot in some of the breakdowns, but look, I have no problem with people who want to get the jab. I think it should be a choice, but what I don't understand is, maybe you can help me. What is why are people advocating a mandate? And why is the president of the United States saying that we have how can you have a vaccine that works and also have an unvaccinated population threatening a vaccinated population? How is it that does not register as an oxymoron in the minds of people?
That's the age-old question with this topic in general,
And they keep rewriting the definitions and saying, oh, well, actually, vaccines aren't supposed to do that. I'm like, what?
They just reduce symptoms if you do catch it now. Like that's one I heard. That's one I heard the other day. It's like,
it would have been so much worse. Hey, I got the jab and I got sick.
Yeah,
but it would have been.
Do you see how that's an easy out? I mean,
I got it.
I had someone say that.
Yeah,
I'm sure it would have been worse if I didn't get it. I'm like, what? How do you know? You're a healthy person. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? You're a dancer, for God's sakes. Like, well, I know someone else who got,
bro.
That's it. And it's good conditioning.
Yeah. Yo, Faust, what, you were talking about like, hey, I'm a different person now than I was before. Like, what started you on this journey, man? Like what have been some of your rites of passage? Like, I remember meeting 10 years ago.
We met in Larry Moss's class, right?
Yeah. We did.
That's right.
I think it was either 2010 or 2011. I'm not sure. I worked on Red by John Logan.
I know Red well. Yeah, of course. I remember what the hell did I work on? My God, that was 2000.
Forget. I'll search for all the emails. Maybe I'll find it.
My God. So it was around 2010, maybe. It was Larry Moss. It was Larry Moss, dude. I mean, I love this man. He's the Yoda of acting teachers, and I was trying to do a role from Anna Christie. I was trying to play
I remember that.
The Irishman, and he has a million broken hearts and he wears them on his sleeve, and he is completely annihilated, drunk, and he's a big fucking vulnerable mess. And I couldn't come near this role. I was so, I could not reach that part of me. And Larry Moss said to me, he said, Faust, he said, do you want to play these roles? And I said, if I can't play these roles, I don't want to do anything. And he said, I hear you. I believe you. He said, but you have to understand that you built the Empire State Building over your emotional center. And I was like, yeah, because I couldn't, when I would feel vulnerable, it was like Iron Man. You know what I mean? It was like, I didn't have to think about it. I didn't even have to become self-conscious. The habituated response, the physiological response in my body was an immediate clamping off, without a thought. And so I couldn't feel, I literally couldn't feel. I had so much, and I didn't know it at the time. Larry was like trying to ask me questions about my parents, and I didn't know my ass from a hole in the ground. I didn't know about myself. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the parental paradox. You only know what you've been taught until you start to realize context and reference, and Larry told me to read the Homecoming, great book by Bradshaw, I think. Fantastic book about abuse, about the dynamics of family, a healthy family has, about emotional role modeling. I mean, when I found out that my parents were supposed to be my emotional role models, I think I didn't speak to anyone for 48 hours because I was in a catatonic state of shock. Okay. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm so fucked. It was, so, that was a pivoting point because I was determined to figure out and open my heart. I thought I was doing that for my work. I thought I was doing that to become a better actor. I didn't realize I was doing it to become a better father, a better man, a better husband. I was doing that from my salvation and my freedom, and it took many years of, it was, of course, at first it was like talk therapy, old school talk therapy, and figuring out that, it's not normal for your parents to beat the shit out of you. That could be one reason, because you don't know. I was just told that.
Yeah, man, I hear you, bro. And it's so hard when you're looking back on that process to for me anyway, the programming was I could never think badly about my parents, even with what it was. I've got to be grateful no matter what, because I'm here and I survived and I had a plate of food on my table. So for me to actually start diving deeper into my unconscious when it came to my relationship with my parents, like that was a big barrier that I had to break. It was acknowledging the possibility that they actually made mistakes. Or potentially, not that they knew any better anyway, but just the fact of the matter,
And that's what, like, that's exactly what I was up against. Like I thought I was raised I didn't know what a dysfunctional family was, but nor did I know how dysfunctional my family was, but I've reconciled all that now. And, I empathize with my parents, and I love my parents, and I'm close with them. And they don't know, they did the best they could. I can't imagine how they had it, but there's no blame to be had. It was the greatest discovery I ever made, because it allowed me to recondition my body, recondition my mind, and to know that I am safe to feel, I'm safe to be vulnerable. I can show that, and there's nothing that is weak about it. In fact, it's just the opposite. And it took me many years, to begin to embody that and realize that. And
what were the key things that worked for you to actually tap deeper into your vulnerability?
So I was working with a core therapist. Eventually, God, she just recently passed away. Amazing, incredible angel of a woman. Her name was Lubna Khalid, and I had found her through, Larry was recommending a breath therapist whose name was Jesse. I don't know if you were still around for that.
I'm not sure.
So I saw this woman's flyer while I was going into one of these breath therapy sessions, right?
Wait, Jessica?
Jesse Torgerson?
Oh, no. So that was somebody
She's
else.
still in the city, yeah. Or she was. But so it was a struggle. Like, I was making slow progress. I stopped going to kind of like the traditional talk therapist, because I just felt like I was just I don't get me wrong. It was, I discovered a lot. But then once you discover it, I don't, you know what I mean? Like I was reaffirming and rehashing and living in this state of like, oh, I'm a victim. And I just felt the progress was going out the window. And so I said goodbye to that therapist. I started working with a core therapist, and a core therapist understands that emotion gets trapped in the body, and that we can move the emotion and it will help us heal. And they work in a different way. And so I made progress in leaps and bounds with her, because it was a different way to, it took me a while to be honest with her. I would have made progress probably a lot quicker, but it took me a year to just be straight up with her, like,
yeah, man.
In general, I don't know if it's when it's a woman, guys don't, you know what I mean? Like, something about that dynamic is different than if it's a man and a man. Anyway, long story short, so we would work different techniques. And then I didn't know that she had a tumor in her breast, and she was doing a lot of meditations and going to Dr. Joe Dispenza's retreats. Mm-hmm. And she recommended his book, and I read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Mm-hmm. And I remember reading this book, and there was nothing about this, I would be reading a section and I would just find myself weeping. And there was nothing about what I was reading that I think would have made a normal person weep, but this book was like resonating with my soul, you know? And I knew on some level that my life was never going to be the same. And I was afraid to finish the book because I didn't want to give up the old, you know what I mean? I knew everything was going to change as soon as I started to put this into practice. And so it took me like 6 months to read this book. That I usually would read a book in, you know, a few days, a few weeks at the most. But I started working Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditation practices. And then I was wise enough to drag my ass to one of his retreats. And that changed everything, because then I really learned from him, you know, hands-on how to meditate. And from there, you know, his meditations, you're practicing gratitude. You know, you're dialing in on that. And when you do, you know, like, and anybody, you can find something you need, you know, an object to be grateful for, you know, like whether it's your children, it can be your pet, it can be your family, everything, everybody has something, right?
Yeah.
And I remember, I think I had already had one child at the time. I definitely had one. No, I might have even had two. And you know, I just started doing it over and over. You know, I would do it in my meditations, and I would, you know, I would find myself, you know, in such a state of gratitude that I would be just weep, you know, I would just be crying tears of joy. I was so grateful for my family and to have discovered this way to heal. And so it got easier and easier, and it's as easy as it's ever been. Sometimes, you know, if it comes up on me quick and, you know, the inclination to hide is still there. You know, I think that, I don't know if that goes away or not, but, you know, I can be in front of people and I don't feel, I won't run and hide, and I'm not ashamed, and I don't feel like that anymore. You know, everything changed, and that was kind of the process. And I started going on spiritual retreats, and like, just like I was at a Dr. Joe retreat, and this woman this woman is so psychic. She's not allowed to touch like the light switches after she meditates, because she'll blow them out. She's not allowed to go near a laptop. She's not allowed to touch electronic things. This woman is electrical, right? And so I had already gone to a Dr. Joe retreat, and one of my friends I made was like, you have to meet this woman. Her name is Cylindra, but we call her Sal. And they were like, she gets downloads. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? They're like, she gets downloads about people. I'm like, you know, like, I wanted to meet you. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we have this big reunion because we all met at a Berlin retreat, and then we were in Toronto, right? And I'm sitting across from Sal, and she's dressed like she's of Indian and Middle Eastern descent, and she's dressed like this like Cleopatra, you know, she's got a queen outfit on, and she's sitting across from me, and I haven't met her yet. I'm making eye contact with her, right? And we're both talking to people next to us, and I see her looking at me, and I'm like, oh shit. And sure enough, she stops what she's saying, and she looks at me, and she's like, can I tell you something? And I'm like, yeah, sure. The record scratches and stops, and she's like, it's personal. And I'm like, I had a feeling it was going to be personal. Sure, go ahead, lay it on me, you know. And man, she spoke to me, and she said, I can see how wounded your heart is. She said, I can see it's so big, and it's still so wounded. She said, you're making so much. This woman didn't know me from anything. She said, you're making so much progress. You can make more. And she told me about a spiritual teacher to go to seek out. And I did. And I went to this person, and I did a 4-day opening your heart is the name of this retreat. I mean, like, synchronicities, you know what I mean? Like, they just start happening, right? And that's crazy. So many things came just from that moment, right? But I would just go to these. I was determined to open my heart, whatever that meant, and wherever it took me. I was on a mission, right? And so I went to this retreat, and I studied with this very obscure spiritual guru who most people probably haven't heard of. Drumvalo Melchizedek, his name is.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah,
he wrote these books on the flower of life.
That's right. That's exactly right. He explained how the universe was created through geometry. Yeah, in his books. and he was given that explanation, which is mathematical, by the way. I mean, like, if you look at it, you're like, dude, I'm not this advanced in algebra. In fact, I didn't even pass algebra. How the fuck am I supposed to read this? Like, it's like these literal mathematical explanations of how the universe was created through geometry, sacred geometry, and the Platonic solids. But you know, like, synchronicities start to happen when you align.
Synchronicity is the norm, bro. Man. We're so disconnected from that, but synchronicity is the norm.
And when you answer the call, you
That's
know,
right.
we talk about this whole thing, even, you know, coming back to the beginning, like, what makes things different for people? How many people have answered the call of the hero's journey?
That's
you
it.
know, like, you're in a class with Larry Moss, and, you know, you can say, okay, he's a mentor, and he's like, hey, you need to do this X, Y, and Z.
No, that's right.
You could have been like, you know, fuck this shit, I'm gonna go find another teacher. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But it's like, there's something inside of you that knew the truth, even if you didn't consciously know like what he was talking, you just felt it. It was like there was something you had to do. And then it's like, you know, we find these guides along the way in the hero's journey. It's not about being like, oh, I'm gonna bow down to you, guru, and you have all the answers. But these guides and these teachers, they have these little nuggets, and then we continue on the journey.
That's right.
You know,
and it's the only true hero's journey. I found myself saying that more than once over the last few days. I believe that, you know, and I think it's there for everyone to embark on, and not everyone knows that they should, and not everyone knows that they could, but not
even everyone knows there is such a thing. No, hero's journey.
It's true. It's so fucking true. Some people think that they're here, I don't know, to go, you know, to go to work. It's hard for me to, you know, you can't put it back once it's out. You know, I don't, it's hard for me to even like contemplate that. I used to be like, my goals were like, I want to be on TV. Those are my prime goals. I mean, like, I think about that guy who just wanted so bad just to like land this big part on TV. And I'm like, holy shit, I was confused. I'll
show all those people. I'll be on TV.
Exactly.
Right?
And you look at the drivers and the motivators behind all that. Then you look at the trauma behind why we have those drivers and why we have those motivators.
That's it right there.
You keep digging down those trenches, bro, to get to the roots of, you know what I mean, why I desire the things that I desire, and why I think that I'm gonna, you know what I mean, be happy once I get to that point. But these in my view, these are implants, right? So to distract us from the hero's journey. This is the bread and the circus along the way.
It's the Matrix, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head.
I reckon that's a great place to wrap up the first part of this episode. What do you think?
I think, yeah, perfect. I was just about to say the same thing. I think it's a good place for sure. And just want to thank the public for watching this first part of the episode. You know, the second half is for our patrons. But real quickly, Faust, like, just for the public, if they wanted to find you anywhere, like,
man,
what would be
like, you know, so I have a website in my name, which I mean, it hasn't been updated in quite a while, but I host a podcast called Far Out with Faust. And we're not quite as prolific as Here for the Truth, but we do an episode once a week. We have a variety of different people on, from physicists to, you know, gurus, you know, people who are entrenched in the wellness and health industry, and you know, biohacking, neurohacking, you name it, plant medicine, UFOs. We get into it all. Usually,
far out, bro.
That's far out,
right? You know where that name came from? The young woman who I told you I met, who I found Dr. Joe through. When I told her I was doing a podcast, she just turned to me without batting an eye and said, "Are you gonna name it Far Out with Faust?" And I was like,
wow.
That's
now that you say it.
Cool.
So Far Out with Faust, and that lives on just about every platform. And if you want to see the videos, which we make a solid effort of editing our videos and you know, making sure they're visually entertaining. Cool. You know, that you can find those on YouTube. They still live there for now. And the channel is called Red Pill Unplugged.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we'll see our patrons on the other side.
Thanks, everyone.
It's gonna get juicy. See you guys.
Yeah.
All right, to our patrons, welcome back to Here for the Truth. We're going to continue this incredible dialogue with Faust. Good to be back here with you, man. You were just telling us in the little intermittents there about someone you met in Cairo who just shared some interesting information with you about programming.
So I had I host a podcast called Far Out with Faust, and I interviewed a incredible dude. I had no idea he was so incredible until I started talking to him. And the first thing, so he's a French-born hypnotherapist. He's worked in the hospital system in California a lot, which is I thought was very impressive. That they've had him into a lot of the surgery places to work with people who are going to get surgery and who are recovering from surgery, because he's really good at his job and helping people heal. But his name is Pierre Etienne Venier. That's the
beautiful name.
Yeah, and so I was like, I introduced him, and I said, man, but you're in Cairo, you're in Egypt right now, and I said, how are things there? And he said, it's hot. And I said, yeah. I said, how else? And he said, I'll tell you, he's like, I since I moved here from, I think he was in maybe the Santa Monica area of California. He was like, it's like the level of fear here is non-existent. He was like, and you don't realize what living in that amount of fear does to you. He was like, you become so used to it. Like, and you don't have to be the one feeling it, but it's all around you, right? He said that when I moved here, it's like, it was such a relief. He was like, my children, they go to school. He's like, they don't have to wear a mask. He was like, they hug each other. We greet each other. We touch each other here. He was like, that doesn't fly anymore where you are. I was like, you're telling me? I mean, I know, man. I was like, people won't even walk down the street in New York City without a mask on outside. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know what there's no reason for that besides fear. You know what I mean? Like, if you're outside, and that is illogical. So I was because like when I asked him, how are things there? That's exactly what I was asking about, was how are things in Cairo? Like, how are they treating this? And I was like, because you don't hear about Cairo on the news. You don't hear about Egypt on the news. And that's how you know that they're doing their own thing and they're doing it well, because you never fucking hear about it.
That's so interesting. But yeah, man, it's just like a density, huh? That's what it feels like to me when you're in these areas of the world that have been co-opted in this way. It's just like this density or this overlay that's of heaviness. And
that's literally
obviously we don't know what we've taken on from that, because we've become so accustomed and so used to that. This vibration, this frequency, but to be somewhere in the world where it was kind of non-existent, I can't even imagine the breath of relief that I'd take.
Oh my God. I mean, and where you are is probably the worst of where, I mean, don't get me wrong. We're New York and California we're plenty hung up, but I think you're in the thick of it more than we are right now. But he was talking about France, and what I learned about, and I'm sure you guys may have just visited this, so you to tell me if I'm rehashing kind of what you've talked about.
Go for
it. He talks about how, and I learned how, like, hypnotherapy, and I know this from meditations, from reprogramming myself, learning how to reprogram myself. You need to delve into the subconscious. You got to get into the programming if you want to change in any expedient fashion. And that's what I learned in my journeys and my travels and in studying from these gurus, is that, look, the reason why the alcoholic wakes up and says, that's it, I'm never drinking again, and for 2 days he's great, is because he's made a firm conviction, but his body has different ideas. His body is saying, That's great, man. Go fuck yourself. Okay. Pick up the fucking beer. It's been 48 hours. We know what we're doing. We've been doing the same thing for 30 years. Who the fuck are you to tell us we're going to stop drinking? Get the beer. You know what I mean? Get the booze. And then this guy finds himself at the bar with the beer in his hand. He's like, I don't know what happened. I was doing so good for a couple of days there. What that's what's so hard to change. You know, like it's the subconscious programming that keeps us the body continues to run the show, right? That's and I was thinking about how much the programming has people are more likely to deal with something and to, whether that's pain or a lockdown, whether if they've been prepped and conditioned, and you see this kind of mass hypnosis happening, and it's continuing to evolve and happen. They just continue to change the message, and it's whatever makes people feel safe and taken care of. That's naturally what they're going to gravitate towards. And so the reason why you have these large responses is because one side has their freedom threatened, and that they see that, and they see the cages coming in, and they're like, whoa, motherfucker.
Yep.
And the other side feels afraid for their life, and they're like, whoa, no, don't come any closer because you could kill me. So you have the two very valid, I mean, we can discuss, but they're valid to the people having them, right? Like the people who are afraid are genuinely afraid, and people who see the restrictions and the freedoms diminishing are absolutely valid in that observation. So it's like, this is the world that's been set up for us and that we're living in it. And it's all programming. I think it's all a fucking, because you would never get people to cooperate if you didn't constantly bombard them with the fear. They wouldn't have a reason to cooperate or think that there was something there to fear. So it's like, man, there's something so profound about that kind of, those post-hypnotic suggestions that come with the programming and the news.
It's a 24/7 fear campaign that's been going on, and it's been meticulously curated. And over time, I mean, our subconsciouses have been primed for years. I mean, we work, I don't anymore, but in an industry, let's talk Hollywood. Hollywood is like, fucking sorcery capital of the world. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
there is proof that CIA works with Hollywood, etc., to control the population. So you
just read WikiLeaks.
All these movies over time, even Outbreak back in the days, dude.
Oh my God, dude! I love that movie,
with
Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman and
Kevin Spacey, Morgan Freeman.
So all these movies over time, that just prime the subconscious, get you ready, start like plugging you in with like the germ theory myth and all these things where it's like you're going to die. You have to be afraid of these invisible particles floating in the air and all the other stuff, through commercials, through TV, through media, etc. That it's just getting people ready over time.
And it's well funded, and it's more methodical than anyone could imagine.
That's the thing. The trillions of dollars that have been put behind this level of programming, right? And the intention there, it's a big one to actually comprehend, and that's a big pill to swallow for sure. And like, I mean, we watch these movies and we take on this messaging and we naively assume innocence, from this level of media and hypnotic suggestion. But they know how our mind and how our subconscious works better than we probably ever would.
They know as well as anyone, and it's compartmentalized, right? It's like everything else. You start to learn about the trillions of dollars that have gone missing, in these black ops programs that are the military industrial complex. And like, just look at what they did with Afghanistan. If you want to know the level of just total corruption and greed, look at the money spent in Afghanistan. I mean, that was a money grab from the word go, and we could get into the 9/11 conspiracy and all that. But I mean, like, I was talking to someone the other day, and I mean, I don't usually block people. I try to embody the Buddha and Christ when I'm interacting with people on Facebook. I don't always succeed. Don't get me wrong. But this dude is just like he told me like the building number 7 collapsed from an office fire. And I was like, I don't even know. I didn't realize that you were mentally challenged. I was like, I wouldn't have even started this conversation. I apologize. I'm sorry. I was like, but I can't. If you think that office fires brought down caused the collapse of a building, then I don't think we should carry on the conversation anymore. I think it's a waste of time, and I blocked him.
Yeah, but you know what, dude? Like first of all, that's setting a boundary, and I respect, you know, your desire to be Buddha and Christ at times. And at the same time, I'm also just like, no, fuck you, you know, like I am playing that game. And, you know, I've learned, man, over time, when I think back to my early journey, you know, I was on Facebook posting things, and it's like, I gotta tell you, I gotta prove to you, and I gotta explain to you, need to know what I know. And it's like, I just don't even care anymore, man. I'm gonna speak my mind. I'm gonna do my thing. The people that are interested in what I have to say, or on a line, or that soul family, cool. And the rest of you, do your thing. Live your life. I'm cool with it. You know, the problem in general, though, is that when you try to step onto my my terrain and tell me what to do and what to think and how to live, you know, homie, don't play that.
It's the gaslighting that gets me, you know, with that comes through these Agent Smiths, you know what I mean? There's like this level of false moral superiority that they get from believing the mainstream narrative somehow, and it's just
and it's mind-boggling. It's fucking mind-boggling, dude. And I don't understand.
Real quickly, is this: when I think of someone who's faced with a predicament and needs to make a decision, would you say the person who is more aware of multiple sides of a story is better equipped to make a rational decision? You know, in my mind, I would think someone who knows
it's a no-brainer.
4 sides is like, can at least go, okay, now I'm going to try to make a rational decision. But we're dealing with people who fully align with the mainstream narrative, and anything about other points of view are coming through the lens of the mainstream narrative. So it's not even like you're positioning yourself and taking in the information from the other side. You're learning about the other side from the same narrative. And so I know the mainstream narrative. It's plastered everywhere.
Right. You can't miss it.
Look, it's there. Stay home, save lives, etc., etc., etc.
6 feet apart. We're in this together.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, I just have no time for someone who won't even have skin in the game, who won't put the time and the energy to look into other things. And like you said earlier, they just immediately shut you out. And so like, I just don't have time for that level of interaction. I won't go there. If you're actually curious, then cool, we can have a conversation.
That's it. And I've been trying, you know, somebody said to me the other day, they were like, Faust, I admire how noble you are and how well you stay composed on fit when you interact with people, but you need to consider to stop wasting your time. And I was like, you're absolutely fucking right. You know, I'm aware of it and I'm trying to. And I mean, like, you know, I hear that and I'm not offended by it. I know it rings true, you know, like I know that I'm a lot of times I'm wasting my energy. And I'm working on it. I'm
the process,
you know, and my wife's like, are you going to be like this after the pandemic? And I was like, I don't think so. I don't see myself, you know, like, because there's, you know, like, I mean, dude, I get banned from Facebook for 7 days and I'm like, whoo, thank God. All right. Yeah. Could take a nice break, you know, like I'm fine not being on it, you know? So it's not that I feel like it's just that there's so much going on and so much misinformation out there. And a big part of me has a problem with how deceiving it is to fucking be constantly spitting out lies, and that people think like I read an article the other day that said, I took a screenshot of it. It said 4-year-old dies from COVID just hours after symptoms. And I'm like, this is complete bullshit. Let me read the article and see how much bullshit it is. And sure enough, 4 paragraphs down, first sentence in that fourth paragraph said, little Kylie was never actually diagnosed with COVID. I'm like, what the fuck?
We can even get into the whole idea of what is a diagnosis, and that's a whole nother.
And that's, but apparently she was diagnosed post-mortem. I'm like, wait, it's just so dishonest to me. And it scares people, and they're trying to get people into such a scared state that they will get their kids.
You can't fight that train, bro. You can't fight that train, man. For me, like, I've got absolutely just no time for ignorance at this point. I'm not here to hold your hand. I'm not here to save you. I sense your tone when you ask me questions. Yeah. Even people that you mean, I want to. Can you just tell me this? Can you just tell me this? Like, I sense.
No, and you're right. You're right.
You're coming from.
You can tell.
Yeah.
Fuck, yeah. Joey. I'm gonna. You're one of the few people who have in the last few days reminded me that I need to. It's bandwidth, right? Somebody said this the other day. They're like, dude, it's so. If you have this much bandwidth and this much of it is going towards that, what are you missing? Like, you got kids, you got a family.
It's an act of self-love, bro. It's an act of self-love
It is, and I gotta start being a little more diligent with it, because it's just you're not winning anybody over. I mean, and the people who appreciate the information that you're getting, that's one thing. They're going to be there, but the ridiculous conversations that turn into a debate, we're not moving any needles there. You know what I'm saying?
No, man, that's
and then all of a sudden, like 3 hours go by and you're like, what the fuck was I doing for 3 hours on Facebook, having a back and forth verbal exchange? Like, I mean, I got off Facebook pretty much. I mean, I'll post a thing occasionally or share something on an episode or something that Joel shares, and I'll just add it to my timeline. But yeah, man, the bandwidth can be used towards other things, in my opinion.
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah, that's the quicksand, man. Getting stuck in those engagements, which are never going to go anywhere, And for me, I'm here to serve people that want to be served by me. I'm not here to cater to someone who is, who is completely resistant to anything that I have to share,
Anything.
It
doesn't matter.
Iron with iron and enhance each other on this truth-seeking journey, because I think that we all have unique individual parts of ourselves which can make up the whole, and we can benefit each other as a result of having these conversations with people that want to be enhanced by these conversations.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, man. That's a big thing. That's been a big lesson for many people the last 2 years, I think, because there's so many people in our lives that we thought that we'd never have falling outs with, over politics, over issues such as this. But the fact of the matter is that, man, it's where we are right now, honestly.
Yeah.
So for me, man, I carve my boundaries with a machete, and
I'm taking note, and I can learn a lot from you, Joey. Absolutely, man. I'm getting better at it, and I'm making more of a conscious effort towards it. And it's great to talk to you guys, because it's a great reminder of, it's easier when I'm busy, but and I'm busy most days, but some days it's such a time suck. But
I'm curious. You'll have to give us your birth information afterwards. I want to look up your human design chart, man. We can geek out.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah, man. Absolutely. I'll send you all that info for sure.
I'm interested in this because, coming from the entertainment industry, like, obviously we can see how much the powers that be are now leveraging entertainment, right, as a way back to normalcy, the breads and circuses, so to speak, and how heavy now they're coming down on actors and musicians. Like, they're using concerts as a tool to try and encourage vaccination, etc., etc. I kind of just answered my own question in that whole process, but how do you perceive that the same way?
Oh, I mean, they're literally bribing influencers, and they're bribing celebrities to I mean, they're not even trying to hide it. Jennifer Aniston comes out and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, but I just have to. I have to isolate myself from my vaccinated or my unvaccinated friends," and I'm like, then you're an idiot and you don't understand how the vaccine works. I'm sorry, but you know, I mean, that's great. And I'm sure you got paid a nice chunk of money to say that and somebody wrote a fucking article about it, but it's, you know, like
didn't
bullshit.
Joel, didn't Andrew Bogut, didn't he say in a video he got offered money like at the beginning of this to do like a PSA on something? I don't know if it was the jab or if it was COVID or staying home or we got to do our part, all those other fucking phrases that they've been pushing for the last 17, 18 months. Yeah,
man. All sports stars are in the fray, everything. But I mean, Andrew Bogut was the #1 draft pick in the NBA, you know, so it's pretty incredible the level that he's speaking out at this point, you know, but history repeats itself, you know, like we see Elvis in the past being a poster boy for vaccination. Like the game is so fucking obvious. And we knew this was coming, you know, and we knew that at some point in time we're going to be seeing these celebrities and these heroes encouraging us to inflict self-harm.
And you know, but what I want to know is, and this is an honest question. I don't get it. What I don't understand is, like, if it's now clear, if people now, and they seem to a little more now understand that the whole sales pitch about this jab keeping people from getting COVID was a lie. And it's a lie that they have they're in denial that they were sold, first off, and also that in order to not feel like they've been lied to, they've just been easily pivoted from, oh, that's never what they said. I must have misunderstood it. What they meant was it will mitigate symptoms. Okay.
Science changed.
Yeah. But that's what they meant all along. Okay, groovy. That's fine. That's great. If you now understand that this in no way, shape, or form will reduce your chances of getting or giving COVID, why are people still insisting and advocating for any type of discrimination against people who want it or not? I don't. Can you explain that to me? Because I don't understand. I still don't understand.
And that's the mainstream argument. You know, if you utilize statistics and you believe there's this thing that's being passed around, and I get it. And I actually had a conversation with someone I know yesterday who said that exact thing. It's like, I may lose my job because of this whole thing. And it's like, how can they coerce me when everything you just said is what's the official narrative right now?
I don't get it. But again, how do you? But if he, I just don't understand. You know, if
there's no words, bro. There's no words. Let's just sit there with rolling back eyes emoji. Like,
I'm not sure who said this. I think it might have been Yerasimos, the great philosopher. He said, "It only makes sense if you don't think about it." And
I stole that from a mentor of mine, Jason Christoph, who used to say, and I've taken it from it. I want to give props. It only makes sense if you don't think about it, and it is a truth.
It's truth. It's the truth. Yeah, you're not thinking.
How much in our society falls under that category?
And this goes back to the programming. This goes back to the program. If you don't control your own mind, someone else will.
That's right. I mean, if you're as a human being, you are going to be programmed, whether it's your parents, it's your guardians, it's, you know, whoever spends the most amount of time with you from the ages of 0 to 7 and then beyond. That's going to be your core programming, right? It's going to affect the way you live the rest of your life. We know that. That's a fact, right? There's been remarkable studies that have come out of, you know, like there was that orphanage, I think it was in Russia that the United States came upon, or it might have been Germany, but this orphanage was like, it was a nightmare when they got in there, because it was like they said it was the worst sound you ever wanted to hear at an orphanage. It was deadly silent, right? Kids were chained to their beds in their own feces. There was fucking gruel on the floor. The ages were 0 to 5, right? And it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare, right? Half these kids were half dead. Some of them didn't make it. The ones that they did pull out, they were so horror stricken that they were determined to put them into really affluent homes, right? And so some of them went, you know, sometimes more than one went to one affluent home. And what they found was that the kids that were over 3 years old, doesn't matter what home they went into, the self-destructive pattern that was embedded in their heads from that kind of neglect and trauma was across the board. They ended up in jail, they ended up on drugs, they ended up committing suicide. They were fucked, because after a certain period of time, if you don't have that kind of love and the brain, that little mind, when there's too much trauma, it can never recover, right? And that's the programming is so important for an infant into toddlerhood, into childhood. Yeah, it's everything, man.
Those first few years of life, man, are so important. 9 months in the womb are super important. Those first 2 pre-Oedipal years. I mean, it's just like, and people don't understand. They don't understand that. They don't take it to that level. And here we are, and we're masking up 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds. My God, dude. And it's like these are developmental stages. These are the time where these kids, they're looking at they're like trying to look at their mom's facial gestures, or their dad's face, or their siblings, or the people they're in school with at 2, 3, 4 years old, 5 years, whatever. And they're not getting that. They're not getting that relational feedback.
I mean, and the screens.
What is that going to create? It's going to create. We don't even know, dude. I mean, autism from in a psychological sense. Sociopathy, psychopathy in the future. We have no clue.
That I had a. Well, he's a theoretical physicist, and this is a dude who was, talking about algorithms before they were algorithms, telling CEOs like, you need to understand that these are the future. And they were like, yeah, we learned about them. We're not interested. And he was like, okay. So he's a huge advocate because he sees and knows the dangers that these big tech, titans are putting out there. And he's seen the damage that they can do to a child's brain. And he's also a neuroscientist. So this guy, you hear this guy talk and you'd be like, oh my God, he really talks like that. I mean, his voice is like, he's like, well, let me tell you, if you want to nerd out, check out my episode with Bill Softke. I got 2, I had him on twice. He's got a lot to say. And he's working on all these, with these different companies that are developing neurofeedback software and meditation programs for the phones, because, if you can't beat them, join them, right? The kids are gonna get hooked on it anyway, give them a way out through what they're hooked into, right? So he's developing some amazing programs with a bunch of companies, and they bring them on because, if you know how the mind works, you can program how to work the phone into it, right? But he talks about, we did a deep dive into this and just how much damage the neuroprocessing unit of the brain takes when its reality is a screen, right? And so look what we're doing. Look what we've done. We took a bunch of kids who already had, if you've ever taken your phone out in front of a 2-year-old, they're like, it doesn't take much. Once they see it once, that's all they need. There's something very addictive about it. And man, I see it all the time. I just walk down the street and parents got their kids just propped up in front of their iPad dinner. They're in their high chair. And I'm like, yep. Jesus. I mean, I understand it, because then you can have dinner, okay, and you can communicate, but you got to understand that it's not good for your child. Look, once in a great while, okay, parents need relief too. You got to take care of yourself. I understand that. It's not easy to raise a child, let alone 2 or 3. But if that's your go-to, you got to read up on that, because that's not good for their minds. Their neuroprocessing centers get all kaputs, and their pleasure centers get fucking put towards the top of, the highest skyscraper. And then everything is like, this sucks.
Not to mention the blue light that's impacting them. Like they should be getting ready for sleep, and their hormone levels should be in a natural state. And it's just like, let's just shoot
everything
light in their eyes at like 9, 10 p.m. at night, or whatever time.
My kids said they wanted to play video games. You know what I got them? I was like, all right. I got a Nintendo for them. I was like, let's play. They were like,
Nintendo, man. Yeah,
this is great. I'm like, this is the best there is.
Mike Tyson's Punch Out. That was my jam.
Mike
dude.
Tyson's Punch, Super Mario Bros. We played them all, and I got a chance to go back and beat them all with my kids. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
Nice,
I was
man.
like, these graphics are okay. I know, I survived them.
Yeah. It's definitely a big one, man. It's something that we're pretty mindful about. Like my two daughters they've never held a phone at a dinner table. They've never held a phone on a car trip. They're not distracted, and that's what it's about. That these things they're just distractions, right? And it's like, how are they ever going to grow up to be able to interact or to communicate, or to just sit still without having a constant source of entertainment? And
how old are they?
3 and 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Keep it. You just got to hold out for a few more years, and then they'll be okay. It's like we held out long with my first son, and then my second son. Of course, when you have two, it gets tricky because, the older one is able to do more than the younger one, but then the younger one sees it, and it's like, how can you? It gets trickier. But my oldest can govern better than my youngest, emotionally, with everything. Because we waited longer to expose him to some of it. So it's like, man, as long as you can hold out, because then these kids get together and they don't know what to do without one of these things. They literally, they want to hang out with their friends just so they can do this.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? There's monkey bars over there. What are you doing? Go play. Hang on the monkey bars.
On each other. Go eat some fucking dirt.
You should hear the conversations that I have with my children. I'm like, there is a playground right there. What? I'm like, wait. And then I get them out there, and of course they love it. I had a impromptu Little League baseball game at the park here the other day. My wife's like, you're crazy. There's no other parent on the Upper East Side who would do that. I was like, somebody's got to get these kids, get these kids playing together. Right. So I was the umpire / catcher. All-time catcher umpire. So it was great. My kids loved it. They loved it playing. They haven't had a chance to do this for 2 years, play on a team. You know what I'm saying? Like I got them in basketball. They work one-on-one with a coach. That's all they can do. It's ridiculous. And I'm like, listen, this seems awkward because this is a team sport, but you're practicing. You're going to be ready to play it when they let you again. So hopefully that, in the next, my one son is 10. He's supposed to have basketball practice, this fall. So we'll see. I'm my fingers crossed that it goes forward, and it should. There's no reason why it shouldn't.
There's no doubt that the primary target in this war is the children, and it's the generations that are going to follow.
Yeah.
And again, man, the powers, the controllers that be, they recognize that, and they are the primary target, and who's in the way, right? It's
dude,
us.
and what scares me is how effective it's been on the millennial generation. Like I see them walking around in the city, and they got to them. Like they're. I mean, it worries me. Like I don't know of how many of them have parents who are, speaking a little bit of truth to them, but I see them and they're like, man, they got their masks up, their phones in their face. And I'm like, yeah, y'all got a great immune system. You're only 19 years old. You're 20 years old. Like, what do you?
I have friends here that are older that I've connected with, in our little tribe that we're building. And she's like, yeah, I have a 18-year-old and a 17-year-old, and, the 18-year-old got the jab, even though, I guided them not to, and, they're going to make their own choices, but it's really true, man. They're definitely being influenced. And what I'm hearing too is like a lot of these like millennials, or even whatever comes after millennials, like teenagers, they're shaming their parents.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they're working on them too, to do that.
It's like the woke culture too, how they're being influenced through entertainment and through media, and all the virtue signaling that's happening. And they're just like, they're getting on their parents.
My kid's school won't give him allergy medicine without, I mean, they need every permission slip that anything happens now, it's forget about it. Now, like last year I would get a call. Luciano is flatulent today, and with COVID going on, I was like, come again? Did you just call me and tell me that my son farted in school? And And what would you like me to do? Would you like me to come get him and remove him from the school? Do you know if he's going to fart again? Are we having this conversation right now? Is this real life? You know, I'm like,
farting spreads
what
COVID.
the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, I didn't realize that was a way that it could be spread that way. And they're like, oh yes, yeah. I'm like, this is not real life. I'm
not real life, man. It's not real life. And they're trying to make it real life.
My God.
Thing, you know, and like these trigger events come and go, but the remnants of the control they've taken, it stays there. You know what I mean? And then they release the clamp a little bit, and it feels like, oh, we got a little bit of freedom back. But really, how many steps have they walked forward all over your rights and your freedoms? And how much of the new normal have they actually implemented, which you've just now become programmed and conditioned to, so that when you get some part of it back, it's like, oh, okay, we're back to normal. But no.
Exactly. You know, and I see that happening. You know, I was friendly with a TV director who's Australian, and we were aligned for a while. And he would kind of jump in, and I don't even know how we ended up friends on Facebook. I think we were looking at him to direct a film years ago, but we really became on opposite ends of it when the pandemic hit. And he's Australian, and he was just like, you fucking, you know, you Americans are just like, you're so entitled, like you just don't. And I'm like, his name's Peter. I was like, Peter, you're gonna be locked down. Okay. I'm like, this was a year ago. I was like, your country has sold the fuck out. It's your problems have just begun. You think you've eradicated COVID? I was like, this is not about COVID. This is not about COVID. You people could have walked on rainbows and done everything perfectly, and there could be no COVID whatsoever. And I guarantee you will be locked down again. Boy, was I fucking right. Like prophetic.
What's his last name?
Fuck, I'll check. He's still my friend on Facebook, because I wrote him the other day, and I was like, you know what? I said, I don't know if you're in Australia, but I said, I hope you're all right wherever you are, regardless of, you know, the differences we've had. And it turns out I think he's in LA, but, you know, of course, he took the opportunity to comment on how nothing would have happened like that in Australia if people had just got vaccinated. And I was like,
people just don't even understand the foundation.
What? I was
they
like,
don't understand the foundations. I mean, it's just like, I can't even have dialogues with people because I'm playing in a completely different game, a different arena in terms of understanding health, understanding what really causes disease, etc. Like, I just don't even, I can't, that's why I can't even engage with people who are throwing around statistics and all this stuff on both sides, because I don't align with it, man. Like, I don't align with the belief that human beings are walking vectors of disease that are out there to infect one another. That is not my reality. That is not my belief. I don't believe the science supports everything that's being pushed by the mainstream narrative.
Yeah.
And so I live my life like a normal fucking human being.
Yeah.
And I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Superman.
What a miracle.
You're Superman, right?
That's
right.
Superman.
I love that poster. Yeah. Yeah, man. And look, I mean, there's going to be some wonderful evidence coming out. It's being peer reviewed right now, but, you know, Dr. Joe Dispenza was wise enough to take advantage of the pandemic and use his team of scientists to run some very fascinating experiments on the blood of his meditators, which he had drawn right before COVID hit. And one of the scientists had this brilliant idea to, you know, they had access to a level 3 lab where they could apply for the whatever, like, you need to test against COVID. You have to get special something, whatever that something is, I don't know, but they got it, right? And they had the blood of his meditators before and the blood of his meditators after the workshop. And they wanted to see if the immune response would be different, right? And dude, talk about Superman. You got to see what happens under a microscope. You know, when people are raising their vibration, in his meditations. And like, man, it's all about health. It's all about transcending your body, and realizing that it is directly connected to the divine, and what a capacity you have innately to heal, and plug into that instead of this programming that is happening here. And what they found was, I think it surpassed everyone's expectations. I mean, the blood was just like, it was literally like Superman. It was like bullets bouncing off it. It was like unaffected. And so it was really remarkable, not surprising to me, knowing his work and practicing his work, but, they're submitting this for peer review because it's, the implications of the immune response that comes from, meditations and is profound. And so that, they're skirting this because it's a political landscape, but, I just can't wait to publish, because I have like these dickheads who are constantly like, oh, did you lengthen your telomeres at a workshop? And I'm like, motherfucker, I lengthen my telomeres every day right here in my house. Okay. I don't need to go to a workshop. Like they just say stupid shit about Dr. Joe because they don't get it. They don't get it. They think that he's like some kind of quack, I'm like, this dude is like.
People don't understand, man. If you're able to really have a healthy nervous system, nourish your mind, nourish your body, be super resilient, you're going to be a healthy person. You're not going to experience symptoms. Okay. Because again, I don't view sickness and disease the way most people view sickness and disease. And so that's a huge key. If you can stay centered and balanced, and meditation, if it's done a certain way, can have that impact.
Absolutely.
If you're a truly embodied person, mind, heart, body, spirit, you're in alignment. Like there can be chaos around you and you're just like, boom, I am centered, I am zen, and I'm good to go.
Listen, what the stories that we tell ourselves, the programming that we're getting one way or the other, it's going to have an effect. I was just reading a study at a Harvard that they took all these women who are having breast reduction surgery, which is a notably painful surgery that women have. The recovery process is difficult. It's painful. And so they wanted to see if hypnotherapy would make a difference, not only in the pain of the surgery, but also the recovery time and the recovery process. And what they found was, and they did a very, very meticulous study, and they made sure that there was no way that this could be dismissed as, oh, well, it was probably because it could have been because of this, or, they controlled all the variables. And what they found was remarkable. Like these women healed 40 times the speed of women who didn't get the hypnotic therapy, the hypnotherapy, right? And the hypnotherapy is putting someone in it's not like, you're not like, follow this clock, that's all kind of movies and nonsense. But, what you're doing is you're conditioning their subconscious for a physiological response. So they were everything from like keeping their heart rate down during the surgery to reduce inflammation from the word go, all the way up into, to the dealing with the pain and how fast the bones and everything heals. 40% is almost double the rate. I mean, like if you don't understand that you can have a direct effect on your body with the programming that goes into your mind, then you don't know what planet you're living on and what species you are. That's all I've got to say.
Mic drop right there, bro.
Yeah, man. I think that's it's definitely a mic drop, dude. I mean, it's on point. Like
I'll send you the link to the article.
Please do, man.
Absolutely.
But I think this is a good place to end. Joel, what do you think?
Yeah, man, absolutely, man. I'm thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and definitely send that through, and we'll add all those links to the show notes so people can go and look at those studies themselves, and there's no doubt, man, that what we consume on a subconscious level affects us on all levels. And there's also no doubt that we can consciously choose how to program ourselves if that's the path that we want to go down. You know what I mean?
Reprogram.
To benefit ourselves. Yeah, for sure, man. Faust, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, brother.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the conversation. I think that these conversations are so important right now, to be having, and I wish more people would be having them. Thank everyone who's listened to us this far. And, you know, like I said, if you guys want to check out my podcast, it's called Far Out with Faust. And it's also a visual component to it on YouTube, under the channel Red Pill Unplugged. And we got some crazy vlogs up there that are fun, and some of them are spiritual and involve farm animals, and it's crazy. You'll see it. But thank you guys so much.
Also, brother, listen, man, it's nice after all these years to actually have like a proper
brother
in conversation, and
thanks
for throwing your you know, what is it, the hat in the ring, or I don't know what the phrase is, the same.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yeah.
And just, you know, taking a risk, especially, you know, being someone who's in an industry where, you know, I think people have drank the Kool-Aid to a certain degree. So mad props, mad respect. Thanks for being a strong male and being an example to your children of what it means to stay curious, to stay open, to seek the truth, and to share that.
Absolutely, bro. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, man. It's been great talking to you guys. Best of luck. I'm gonna be following you guys as usual and tuning in. I appreciate it.
Thanks, brother.
Man. And thanks to our listeners. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Smoking mirrors, I'm seeing through the illusion. Waking up in a time they think you're in a delusion. Somebody set the alarms, cause they be too busy snoozing. I'm in a DeLorean.